Welcome back to another episode of the Wrinkly Brain Podcast. This is a SmoothBrainEDH affiliated podcast where we like to goof and gaff and talk about the Commander format. I'm your host, Jason, with my co-hosts, Ethan.
Hello.
And Cameron.
Howdy.
And we are once again joined by our SmoothBrainEDH castmate, Logan.
Hi, I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to get to yell at my friends again.
There will be yelling. We can assure you of that.
Absolutely.
So, this week we wanted to talk about underappreciated commanders in our lovely format. So we're each going to present to you two commanders and defend our choices. Some of us are wrong. Some of us are definitely wrong.
Logan.
So, maybe we'll give you some spice.
Why did I know that's going to be
Because I've read the script. I know what's going to happen here.
Yeah, I'm going to be yelling a lot about a particular commander that I'm getting to first. But anyway, finish the intro.
As I was saying, maybe we'll give you some spice, and maybe we'll give you some dumpster hot takes. So after that, we're gonna talk about mono black commanders on the Zur Scale. It's been a few months since we last covered anything on the Zur Scale. We'll give you a reminder of what it was, but if you want to go and check out the last time we talked about it, that was in the April Fool's episode, which was episode 8. If you don't want to watch the whole thing, you can skip to the end. That's when we talk about it.
Has it really been that long?
Yes, it has been over 2 months.
I was on that episode.
Yeah.
Yes.
Also, fun fact, Logan, this is like the only second episode we've been on together. The first time was like episode 2. Yeah.
Oh god, yeah, because
it's been a minute.
Yeah, okay.
I took a break. Yeah.
Alright. So, before we get into it, we have some rules. Underappreciated means different things to different people. It could be power related, it could be about fun, it could be that it's just not popular enough. It could be that the commander's too new and it just hasn't caught on yet. For each of these commanders we're discussing today, we're going to be talking about commanders that have less than 1,000 lists on EDHREC. And bonus points to us if our commander is both old and has less than 500 lists. Old meaning it's over 5 years old in this case. Alright? But, it's whose lines points. They don't matter. So with that, let's get this out of the way. Let's jump right into the main topic. And we're going to start off with Logan's first commander.
Yes, the first one I am bringing to the table is Lagrella the Magpie. She is a 2/3 human soldier who cost exactly banned, so green, white, blue. And her text box reads, when Lagrella the Magpie enters the battlefield, exile any number of other target creatures controlled by different players until Lagrella leaves the battlefield. When an exiled card enters the battlefield under your control this way, put 2 +1/+1 counters on it. If you thought that text box was confusing, so did a lot of other people. You get to exile one creature per player, essentially, is how that works, if you want a simplified version of it. And the one that comes back under your control gets 2 +1/+1 counters. Not the most inspiring ability on a Blink commander. But if you do some fancy stuff with the Ozolith, and there's another card I wanted to mention, you can actually do some pretty cool stuff with that. But going on from that, Lagrella, her main archetype is Bant Flicker, which I mentioned a little bit already, and she has 441 lists on EDHREC. No bonus points though, because she is a rather recent commander out of...
Yeah.
Why can I not remember the name of the set?
New Capenna.
Yeah,
New
Streets of New
She's out of
Capenna.
New Capenna, yes.
She's not the newest commander we're going to talk about on the list, because we do have one that has come out even more recent than that. But we are talking about a commander who's been out for 2 months?
It's
Yeah,
been
definitely.
2.5, 3 months?
Yeah,
definitely
it's not
long at all.
On the time scale, yeah.
Yeah.
My next one will be much older, but...
Yes.
Yeah.
Alright, so why do you like Lagrella?
I find Lagrella to be a pretty mechanically unique Blink commander. Most of these things are not interacting on the same axis that Lagrella interacts on. Yorion is just blinking your board, comes at the end step. There are other, Brago does things in the combat step. Lagrella can do it at any time, and also is grabbing creatures from your opponent's boards. And because of that, she gets to interact with cards like Suture Priest in a pretty interesting way, in that if you can do the infinite blink, you can actually kill people with Suture Priest. Even if you're not going infinite, you're going to get quite a bit of value from Suture Priest. It also gives you the access of politics to work on, because let's say somebody has a Mall Drifter on their battlefield, which you're also playing Mall Drifter in your deck, so I'm just using it as an example. You can say, hey, you want to draw 2 cards, and we can make a deal where, you don't hit me next turn? Well, here you go. Here's 2 cards. Or, let's say you have a Ravenous Chupacabra on an opponent's board, and there's a creature you really need to get rid of, but you don't have a removal spell in hand. You can blink that Ravenous Chupacabra and get them to take that creature out. And generally, at least how we play, the threat creature on the board is generally agreed upon, so that feels like a thing that's you can do regularly. And the other thing I mentioned with the +1/+1 counter ability, which on its face seems not super exciting because you're probably going to blink the creature again. If you have things like the Ozolith in Resourceful Defense, those +1/+1 counters actually start building up very, very quickly, because you can just store those on those cards, and then for in Ozolith's case, you can move it during combat, or with Resourceful Defense, you can move it just to another creature straight out. And I believe that card also has an ability that lets you move things around anyway. Actually, I think you can store the counters right on Resourceful Defense. If I remember correctly, you can put them on any permanent. Let's see.
Maybe.
Yes, when a permanent you control. Let's see. Yeah, put those counters on another target permanent you control. So you can actually store those right on Resourceful Defense. Or if you have both out, you can just put them right on the Ozolith.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. Resourceful Defense is a card I've never heard of before. So that sounds like a fun.
Can you look it up real quick?
Yes, I hadn't heard of it until I started researching for my powered up Lagrella list that I made for this, and I was like, "Wow, I think it's actually from New Capenna as well." Or no, it's not. It's from
It's from the Capenna Commander.
Okay.
That's right.
So I've probably read it. I just
why
have
I've
no
heard
idea
about
what it is.
So it's a relatively
kind
new
of a
card
bad
itself.
Ozolith.
It is definitely I would rather have the Ozolith, but having the redundancy there is pretty nice. And also you can put it straight onto a creature. The ability to move things from one permanent to another is not as exciting, but you can move those counters around to... For example, I have Champion of Lambholt in this deck. You're probably not breaking your Champion of Lambholt. You're just like, oh, cool, I'll go put these 7 +1/+1 counters on Champion of Lambholt and do some fun stuff with that.
Okay.
So my question for you is, why play Lagrella over another Bant Blink commander like Rune or Derevi? What advantage does it have over those?
So, I guess that would kind of get into the why I think they're underrated section of our script. I think it's because she offers... Yeah, it's fine. It's because I think she offers you a certain kind of flexibility and can attack on different axes. Like I said, you get the counter storage axes, which is probably going to be like your tertiary like thing, but I still think it's an interesting way to attack the board. As well as the politics, like I said earlier. I think that additional thing is really interesting to use with your commander. I don't know if it necessarily puts it up and over something like a Yorion or a Brago, which probably not. But I think it makes Lagrella worth looking at and lets you play a different game than most Blink commanders, because she just uses her ability in a very unique way, and I think she deserves to be looked at more often because she can do some unique stuff, and she's not your typical Blink deck. And that's pretty much what I have to say about that.
I think this commander is actually really interesting, honestly. The fact that you focus on the politics, I think, really helps sell it. And also, comparing it to Yorion and Brago, you have to remember, green makes it just so much better.
This is true.
That's something I want to focus on with this commander.
I think
you have
Rune
access
is
to
the
green.
most apt comparison.
I personally think she's better than Rune. You guys might disagree with me on that. I think she's better.
Good in different ways. Rune being able to do it whenever you want, and not being an enter the battlefield trigger can kind of, and it being able, like with untap shenanigans, can get really cool.
And Rune having the interaction nowadays with Sound of the Infinite to potentially just lock an opponent out of their commander for the rest of the game if they choose to put an exile in the turn before it comes back in with the trigger on the stack. That's very important to remember about a Rune. I bring up Derevi as well because of Derevi having an enter the battlefield trigger to blink. That is also very important to me. Rune doesn't have that. Lagrella has that, which makes me almost think it's more of an apt comparison with Derevi. While Derevi is not necessarily a blink commander like Rune or Lagrella, it has those synergies there. And in Bant, which has a lot of access to things like Lagrella.
That's really interesting, yes.
Yeah, that's true.
I like the fact that it's not an activated ability, because if you put in two other blinkers, you essentially go infinite, because you can just continually stack back and forth. Like, let's say you had it needs to be, it can't be something like Flicker Wisp, which comes back on the end step. It needs to be something like Faladar Guardian and
Resto.
And like Restoration Angel. And then there's also a few others that you can, at least in my list, that you can do that with successfully, like Abdel Adrian, which is also a pretty new card, and I think works super well in this deck, because you can amass a board of tokens super quickly. But that's just really for any Blink deck, if I'm being honest.
Yeah,
but
Blink decks can take a lot of use out of Abdel Adrian.
Yeah, but PZ, you can do stuff with like that, like what I'm talking about, with like an Abdel Adrian, a Glorious Protector, things of that sort.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
If you get not Essence Warden, but Eternal Witness and other similar effects involved, you can like do things with Ephemerate and pick that back. Well, you probably want Cloud Shift for that particular one, but you can pick those back up, and as long as you have enough mana or some way to generate mana from your blinks, that can go pretty insane itself.
All right, I like it. I think there's a lot of options. 3 mana for a commander is always something you want to talk about as well. It's just that mana efficiency is really valuable. And I think we have now hit a critical mass of like in-step blink effects or repeat blink effects in the banned color combo to enable Ligrella, at least in like a really fair way. So we're probably at the point where we're good, and we can say that it doesn't matter too much that you don't get to control exactly when you blink, because you just have enough. Yeah, you have that critical mass.
Yeah.
Alright, next up is my first commander, Nihilor. So, for those of you unaware what Nihilor is a 5-mana 3/5 horror casting 2 generic and Esper, so blue, white, black. And when Nihilor enters the battlefield, for each opponent, tap up to 1 untapped creature you control. When you do, gain control of target creature that player controls with power less than or equal to the tapped creature's power for as long as you control Nihilor. That's the ability we're focusing on. The other ability is whenever you attack with a creature an opponent owns, you gain 2 life and that player loses 2 life. So this is Esper Steal Your Shit. But it's unique because it does it in a couple of different ways. Also worth noting, this is a commander with 515 lists. This is a pre-con commander who has just barely hit 500 lists.
Were they a face pre-con commander?
They were not the face pre-con commander, but they were in the deck.
That's still
the Zephyrus pre-con.
That's still very low, even for an alternate commander.
And that's a very popular set of pre-cons as well.
Yeah, but it doesn't fit as like the dungeon commander. But yeah, but
no,
still,
it's not the dungeon commander. It's a different thing. So here's the thing. What I like about this commander is that first ability is way stronger than people give it credit for. When we did Zur Scale, I had to fight Head and Shoulders on people to make sure that this got a 4 on the ranking, which means it's a below average commander.
I do remember that, yeah.
I fought a goddamn war for this. The main arguments that were against Nihilor is, I don't get to steal big things. I don't care about stealing your big things. I just need to be able to steal your thing with 3 power or less. That's most creatures that are going to be in play. Mm-hmm. I need to protect Nihilor to make sure I keep the thing. Or I just sacrifice your thing. Like, I'll just use Nihilor's ETB ability as a kill your thing, and I get to kill 3 things when it enters the battlefield, but you need more creatures in play. Have you been playing against Jetmir recently and been overrun by a fuck ton of creatures? It's not hard to get 3 creatures in play. It costs 5 mana. You're an Esper control. You're okay. You will get to 5 mana to do your thing.
You've already kind of sold me by all these points. Every single thing I was going to say, you've broken down.
So we talked about Teleportation Circle, Conjurer's Closet. Those are still really good in this, because you blink them and they're yours forever.
Yeah, are they good cards or what, guys?
Now, keep in mind, you do have to get the ones that specify enter the battlefield under your control. Yes. Teleportation, and this is, you can either blink Nihilor, or you can blink the things you stole. In the case of Thassa Deep Dwelling, Cloud Shift, and Ghostly Flicker, they specify that it enters the battlefield under your control. Mm-hmm. Whereas Teleportation Circle and I believe Conjurer's Closet both state that it enters the battlefield under its owner's control. So those would only work on Nihilor. So, Esper Control, more specifically Esper Steal, on a Flicker and Aristocrat's axis.
Sign me up.
You've got options.
Yeah, it's a really unique, cool deck.
You definitely need to assemble an engine, because if you're just blinking Nihilor without a sack outlet and stuff, you're not going to, like, those creatures are just going to go back. Like, that's the problem. I think that's what people think a lot. They're like, oh, I have to, like, assemble all these engine pieces to, like, actually make Nihilor work. That seems like a lot of work, which you know might be a little bit because we're so spoiled with, like, self-contained engines on commander bodies nowadays. A question I do have is, you mentioned, like, it's easy to get 3 creatures in play, which I don't disagree with, but I'm curious how you attack this when you're building a Nihilor deck. Is it like a token strategy, or are you just casting creatures?
Do you want my genuine answer on how I would build this?
Yes, I genuinely want your answer.
Hate bears and stacks.
Yeah. You know, that makes a lot of sense, yeah. The thing is, bears only have 2 power.
Yeah, I mean, I don't need a lot of power to stop you from doing your thing.
That's true. There's a lot of, like, small creatures that are
you put like
pretty good that a lot of people play.
Nihilor's got a lot of options. You don't need a ton of things to work. You just need 1 sack outlet. Which, by the way, if you're playing something like Carrion Feeder, for example, you have a scaling way to steal as well.
Ooh. I hadn't considered that. That's true.
Yeah.
Me either.
The big issue with Nihilor is closing out the game, which the last ability does help with, but it's only taking 2 damage, and if you're stealing 2 power creatures, like, you know, it's going to take time. So, not a perfect strategy. I do agree there are weaknesses here. But I think Nihilor at least deserves its 4 on the Zur Scale, okay?
Yes, I would agree with that. I do want to see it in action, because maybe you'll convince me to put it higher, but I think it should be looked at more. I agree. It's pretty interesting. It's mechanically unique, which is something I emphasize with Lagrella.
I don't have near as much pushback on this one that I did Lagrella.
I think you just like being mean to me, Ethan.
I mean, that's not something I'm not gonna say is true, but
that's not the reason.
Yes,
just saying.
Yeah, I will also add when the Kissies, yes. I will add when the people that talk about, like, big creatures being a problem, it's like, well, like you said, you're an Esper Control, and you're going to be playing removal spells in your deck anyway. It's not like you're forgoing removal spells to try to steal the creatures. Like, you're not treating Nihilor as a removal spell. I mean, you kind of are, but not for big creatures. Like, you're going to grab, you're still going to have removal spells to get rid of the big, scary pieces.
Okay, let me meme real quick and hear me out, and then we'll move on. Toxic Deluge. Make everything, like, 1 power. Play 3 creatures, and then play Nihilor. Tap your stuff, and then steal those, and then on your turn, or the next turn, they go back to big power.
It's at a minimum of 9 mana.
Hold on. Better yet, though.
Oh?
If you're doing this over multiple turns, you can have the Nihilor and the Teleportation Circle in play already. So all you...
Okay, and hear me out. Just play Toxrill in the deck. Like, Toxrill's insane in this deck, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Hear me out. Just play Thassa's Oracle Demonic Consultation. Just win.
Okay. No.
Okay.
Bad, Ethan.
Or let's move on now. I killed it.
All right, we hit our Thassa's Oracle quota.
We're good. Blue-black. The deck has blue-black. Play Thassa's Oracle. Anyway.
Hey, you know what deck doesn't have blue-black? The one that I am bringing to the table. The first one. Kura, the Boundless Sky, is my first underrated commander. You may have seen this in action in our, I don't know when this is going up, but one of our recent videos. I played my Kura deck that I put together. Let me read off what Kura does. Kura is 3 and 2 green pips for a legendary dragon spirit creature that has flying and death touch, and when it dies, that's a 4/4. And when it dies, you have 2 options. You can choose one. You can either search your library for up to 3 land cards, reveal them, put them into your hand, then shuffle. Or you can create an XX green spirit creature token where X is the number of lands you control. The reason I believe that this is underrated, why I like them, more why I like them, is I actually like lands as an archetype. I know that it can get a lot of hate because it can be very samey. Your main commanders for lands are probably, what would y'all say, like Tatiova and Windgrace?
Omnath.
Yeah, various
Omnath. Various
Omnaths. AC as well, if we were talking about Tatiova.
I just think this is a fairly unique take on a lands archetype kind of strategy. Being able to tutor 3 lands, for a pretty low cost is really good. Like, generally when you're playing this deck, I would want to mulligan until you have like one way to kill your commander once in your hand, and then from there you can just go tutor a high market and go to town.
That's dumb. That's dumb.
Yes, I agree.
Also,
as the avid lands hater of this group, I will say this is a lands deck I actually enjoy playing against because it is so unique. It's not just, play lands here, I'm going to draw 8 billion cards and have mana to cast my commander every turn 3 times over.
I'll have that. I'll still have
that. Yeah, but I'm going to enjoy watching it happen. It's going to be cool.
Also worth noting, this only has 182 lists. I mean, it's a fairly recent set. Nien, Kamigawa Dynasty, whatever.
Slight correction, 185. Your video that went up yesterday has bumped it by 3 decks. Be proud of yourself.
Yeah. Also, it's Kamigawa Neon Dynasty.
Well, it was a I forget the point I was making. I just want to let y'all know that playing Tron and Commander is fun. Being able to tutor Tron off of one die trigger.
Cloud post.
I don't know if it was correct, but I'm playing the Locust lands. I thought it was funny. I don't care if it's correct or not.
I mean, I like it. You play Vizuma in the deck too. Like you can get to.
I mean, if you also like Field of the Dead, this is maybe the best turbo Field of the Dead deck. You just tutor Field of the Dead Vesuva Thespian stage, and you have all 3 Field of the Deads in your deck.
I mean, Golo's gone, I would tend to agree with that.
Most importantly, you can just assemble Merit Lage so easily.
That too. Yeah, you literally and just tutor.
And you get a free 3rd bonus land for funsies as well. Like you
probably Yavimaya. Yavimaya is pretty important to this deck. Because
there's somebody who played Depths and Legacy, having the Urborg was so nice.
Like, the only downside I can think of is that you are playing a ton of colorless lands in this deck. I think I was only playing 20-ish green sources, but you're mono green, and so being able to tutor that Yavimaya, it makes it super
that's literally what I was about to say. It's like, but you get to tutor lands, so you don't really care.
And Yavimaya existing helps a lot.
The second ability exists as well. You're not going to do it that often, I don't think. But
with greater good.
You mentioned
to me earlier before the episode, greater good is a very key part of the deck, and being able to sacrifice your commander and make a 20/20 to then sack and draw 20 of a greater good. Pretty decent.
If you watch the video, he unironically sacks
I did that with
Merit
Lodge.
The greater good. Yeah.
I don't care about the snakes.
Also noting, Kura has Death Touch, which makes it really awkward to attack into. Like, that's not irrelevant either. Like, I know that's like the 3rd thing you look at on this card, but like, it's kind of relevant.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing up the line of text I completely forgot was on the card.
It has Death Touch.
It has Flef Touch? No, that's...
Oh, no. Nope, don't like that one.
I don't like how you said that.
I'm going to keep going by saying that the best card in the deck is Greater Good. It's the repeatable sack outlet. You also get to play like Momentous Fall and Life's Legacy, which are good ways to kill your Kura. And even if you're just sacking it off of a high market, you can assemble a pretty quick, like, if you have Loam's in my deck. So you can assemble, I'm playing all 3 cycle lands as well. So if you find your Loam, you can tutor all your cycling lands, your Tranquil Thicket, the Desert, and the 2-mana one, Slippery Karst. Is that it? Maybe. You tutor all 3 of those, and you have a Loam engine to where you can sack some lands and or cycle those, draw cards, get back your Loam, the like card advantage.
Slippery Karst is correct.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
It is correct. Yeah, good job. I will ask, are there any other free sack outlets in like green or colorless? Well,
so
I think there's Claws of Gix, but do you even...
Colorless
altars
has plenty.
Altars are aplenty.
Your altars.
Altars. Claws of Gix, if you want to be real spicy.
I saw those. I didn't want to play any. I didn't want to play any bad ones, and I think being able to kill it once, because in very casual Commander land destruction, you're not going to get mass land destruction. Someone might snipe your Field of the Dead with a Beast Within or a Generous Gift or something.
I have opinions on that, but that's a different podcast.
Right. But generally, mass land destruction is not in most playgroups. So you have a critical mass of like being able to, like, even if they do destroy your Field of the Dead or whatever, you can get it back super easy. There's like 4 ways in the deck to play lands out of your graveyard, and there's regrowth and Balagad Recovery. But yeah, I really enjoyed baking this deck. Somebody asked, so sack outlets. Generally, if you tutor up the high market once, you're pretty good on sack outlets. Like, the other ones are better, but you can consistently find one way to kill it in, like, 1 or 2 hands.
Yeah, I guess my question is, do you really even care about sacking Kura multiple times in a turn. Like
in a turn, no. You want to do it multiple. You want to do it multiple times a game, probably. But
yeah. But I'm just like, is it even worth it? Like going for a second sack on a turn?
No, I think
of the time,
generally speaking, if you're sacrificing Kura any time beyond the second time, you're making a spirit.
Yeah, you
want the pressure.
I mean, tutoring the Tron lands really helps out, though. Like, if you have Tron, then you can. I could say maybe you sack it for lands a third time. But you're not always going to have the crazy game like I had, where I went Summer Bloom into Azusa. That's 6 land drops in a turn.
So stupid.
You're not going to get that most games. Right. Generally, you'll at least find one way to make an extra land drop. So your Oracle will die as your Explorations, your Druid class. You find
you're playing like all of those though.
Oh yeah,
or,
you play every single
Wayward, like Wayward Sabertooth or Swordtooth.
That's the only one I didn't think I included.
Really, you didn't play that one?
I'm a goober.
Oh, okay.
It's the most it's not the most expensive one. Oracle's.
Did you?
But yes, that's all.
Okay.
I think that's everything on Kura.
Awesome. All right, Ethan, it's your turn.
Okay, I didn't know this commander existed before last night. I'm not gonna lie. I had other ideas for the commander for the slot. And I saw this, and I was like, oh, okay. This is Minthara Merciless Soul. It is a Orzhov commander, 2 and then a white and a black, for a 2/2 legendary creature elf cleric. Ward X, where X is the number of experience counters you have. At the beginning of your end step, if a permanent controlled left the battlefield this turn, you get an experience counter. Creatures you control get +1/+0 for each experience counter you have. So, a lot of text. Let's make it this way. Why do I like this card? Experience counters are cool, and I like them. That's all. That's it. Okay, episode over. No.
I mean, I agree with you.
There's not many experience counter commanders, right? There was the 5 from C15, and then you had
Calcium.
Thank you. And then you have this guy. That's 7, right? That's only 7 total. So it's not very used a mechanic. In Orzhov, you have another option, which is Daxos. Daxos sucks. All right.
Yes.
There's a reason I'm not talking about Daxos here, because Daxos sucks. But this protects itself, has an ability that triggers on your end step, and also buffs your entire creatures. So what can you do with this commander? You can do Aristocrats, because you can sacrifice your creatures and get a benefit from there, which buffs your creatures. You can do Blink, because it cares about just permanents leaving the battlefield. So this is very similar to the Revolt mechanic from Aether Revolt, right? One of the key cards, I think, for the strategy would be Hidden Stockpile, which is a 2-drop Orzhov enchantment that has Revolt that makes a creature. And then it has a sack outlet. So with this commander and that one card, you can just sack the servo you get every turn to get another servo and then buff it up. And also, it helps go wide, so it has a way to end the game. And also, it protects itself. Like, those are all key points. Like, if you're spending 4 mana on a commander, and if it just dies, it dies. But having, you play a commander, let's say you played a fetch land, go into commander, you instantly have a ward 1 on your commander that's going to increase every turn. And then, if you add proliferation on top of that, there's many different ways. Not many. There's a few ways. Thorn of Geth is a colorless way. There's not many. I think it's more of a green.
It's a great card in this deck, though.
Thorn of Geth is fantastic.
Karn's Bastion's also
Karn's Bastion is very good. There's a few other ones. There's the one spirit, I think, that on when it dies, you can proliferate. There's a few of them, but you can play those, and then you can get those experience counters up higher. Experience counters you really can't remove. There's Sun Cleanser from M19. Don't fucking joke around like that.
Which was printed to deal with energy, hilariously enough, which was from the set that...
And it didn't do shit!
No, it was terrible.
3 months before energy rotated.
Yes.
Like... If you get counters, you're not going to lose the counters. Unless your meta is just so against Infect and experience counters for some reason that people are playing Sun Cleanser of all fucking cards, you're going to keep those experience counters. And you can play Daxos in your deck, so you have 2 ways to get experience counters. If you have a few... I mean, you could. It doesn't hurt if you're arguing experience counters. So I think you can play Daxos in this deck, because it's 3 mana to make a creature that you're then pumping based on... your commander's ability. So I think that's still very relevant to play Daxos in. I think you play it, because it's not... what's the downside?
That's exactly what I was going to say, is you want it for the creature ability and not the experience counters.
And if you get extra experience counters off of Daxos, that just pumps your creatures more, which pumps Daxos and your commander more, which protects your commander. There's an engine here. I just want to point out, there's an engine here, and the key word that I didn't realize until 10 minutes before we started recording, permanent. Not an outland permanent, Not non-token permanent. Permanent. Your fetch lands trigger this. You sacking a token triggers this. Like, you can play your Evolving Wilds in a budget deck and be able to get an experience counter, which is very relevant.
You know that lovely permanent that everybody loves and is definitely not overprinted right now, Treasures? Yep, really good in this deck.
You know what? I didn't even think about that, Logan. What the fuck?
Unfortunately, it only triggers on your turn. It does not trigger on everyone's end step. If it triggered on everyone's end step, it would be borderline broken. And you could
agree with that.
+4/+0
and
per
let's
turn
not even
rotation.
talk about if it triggered every time if something left your battlefield.
That'd be absurd.
Oh, God.
So, just to give my little 2 cents on Minthara, I think Minthara is actually right at about the level of popularity I would expect right now. It is a kind of like Black, White, Go Wide Aristocrats Commander, and it came out less than a month ago. So,
Yes.
we are talking about something that has 400 lists, and it's been out for only 1 month. Granted, we do have like Miram, who came out and has like almost 4,000 lists at this point.
Is it that many?
I think,
Yep.
Isn't she
What?
just the best Dragons commander now?
Pretty much,
Oh,
yeah.
Literally, yeah.
Miram's good girl.
She's very easy to break in half, yeah.
But the one thing I will say, above all else, that is underappreciated about Minthara is the scaling ward ability.
Yes.
So here's the fun thing, alright? She has Ward 0 without any experience counters. Your opponent still needs to pay that 0 and might be unaware of what happens, because I have run into so many people who are like, do you pay the 0? No, I'm not paying 0. Okay, countered. It's obviously casual commander, you're going to take that back and say, okay, fine, I pay the 0. But you get to make the joke, guys.
Yes. I will say I think she has the potential to be underappreciated. I hope she doesn't. She is pretty recent, but there's a chance the initial surge of like, oh, new commander, build deck, just falls off. So
Also,
definitely pay attention to it. Hopefully will influence people to make decks of her, but go on.
also of note, I just want to bring up, she also includes herself in her buff. So if you,
Yes.
reasonably, how many times are you going to be able to trigger her a game? Like 3 or 4, just because it has to be a whole turn rotation, board wipes happen. She's likely not getting spot removed in the course of the game. But yeah, she's really cool.
I want to make one last point. It is technically a Pauper Commander. So you can have experience counters in Pauper Commander.
That's dope.
So that is really dope. So I will shut up about this commander I found out about last night. We can move on to the next commander. Yell Logan again.
Oh,
Hey,
yes!
Logan, you ready?
Logan!
Oh god, it's already
Yo,
my
Logan!
turn again? It's already my turn again. Alright, so yes, for my second commander, I picked something that's probably a little bit controversial at the very least. At the most, it's very controversial. Yes, so my second commander is Hokori, Dust Drinker. Some of you probably know this card. For those of you that don't, Hokori is a 2/2 spirit that costs 2 generic and 2 white. Hokori reads, lands don't untap during their controller's untap steps. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player untaps a land he or she controls. Yes, you get a Winter Orb in your command zone, and I think that's cool. Some of you probably disagree.
It's unique.
We all disagree.
Yes. And I will say, I get bonus points because this is all the way back from original Kamigawa, and it has 100, well, at the time of me making my notes, it has 167 lists, but now it has 169 lists. Nice.
I could also pick an obscure Kamigawa commander and get bonus points. It could have been me.
That's true.
But I like this card. This
shithead.
has been on my to build list for a while now, actually. And I will say,
Honey, no.
I probably won't play the video because it's bad for content, right?
Yes,
But
very.
Just don't play it at all then. If you can't show our suffering to the people at home, why you make us suffer?
fine, I'll put it on the channel. I don't care.
I don't want you to. I'm just saying, don't just play it when we're hanging out.
Good luck finding a pod for that recording.
Yeah, that is the
I
problem.
will stay
with the
home.
Corey. That is the problem with Hokori. Anyway, yes, the main theme / archetype for Hokori is stacks and hate bears. I will say those are two distinct things, and Hokori can do both of those things.
Yes.
So why I like them? No, I'm going to say why I like Hokori.
Fine.
What I said earlier is that you have a Winter Orb in your command zone, which cannot be overstated for stacks. You get probably you get one of the strongest stacks pieces ever printed in the game on demand, as long as you have the mana, which you're in mono white, so maybe you'll have a little bit of tough time ramping, but just play some additional ramp. And why I think they're underrated is I think that if you were playing mono white stacks, this is the commander you should absolutely choose, and I think it deserves more play alongside its multicolored counterparts, because while there is a symmetry to break, I think you can do that pretty easily. The card locks down the game rather easily, and it also lends itself, like I said earlier, to hate barriers, where, initially when you do this card, you're like, oh, this is just a stacks piece. No, you can also play hate barriers with it. There's been a lot of new white hate barriers that have been printed that slot extremely well into this deck, and I think that this new look at hate barriers that Wizards is giving to white to kind of try to buff up the power of it warrants another look at Hokori, as well as some of the newer enchantments that have come out. Like Smothering Tithe is a good example, but it's not new as some other stuff. But what is the one I am thinking of? Smuggler's Share, yes. Smuggler's Share is a very good thing to put in. And like Archivist of Ogma, Deep Gnome Terramancer are 3 really good new cards. I'm definitely reading those with the top line of EDHREC, but I agree those are cards that are worth giving another look to Hokori. I think if you're building a stacks deck, you should consider Hokori. It's not something you're going to see very often, and it's pretty good, honestly.
Yeah. All right. So I need to explain why I don't view Hokori as underappreciated. So, as everyone knows, within the Commander format, we have kind of our social agreement of what's acceptable, and stacks is one of those things that people hard push away, particularly stacks that targets lands. So, Hokori and a casual sphere is just out the window. It's one of those things where it's like, if you're playing this in the casual sphere, you're kind of going against the social contract altogether. And a lot of people don't want to play against that. So you need to play it in a sphere where the social contract is not against stacks. Which the one big area for that right now is CEDH. So when you're in the CEDH sphere, you need the best stacks deck. And now we're talking about competing against Oswald Fiddlebender and Heliod Suncrowned as some of the best stacks commanders you can play, where Hokori, unfortunately, very much falls short, especially as a 4-mana commander who only interacts with lands in a field of fast mana, and Thassa's Oracle, and Ad Nauseam.
Jason, where's your 10-page paper with cited annotations? Because you just, wrecked him.
That's just my feeling on it. Hokori ends up not being underappreciated due to the existence of the social contract. We can debate on the social contract where land destruction should fall, but
which we've done.
As it stands, I don't think it's underappreciated.
Also, Hokori is not inherent land destruction.
It's underrated. As you said, the effect is good, especially if you're playing it in a casual setting. It can be underrated, but also at the same time not be underappreciated, which is kind of where I lie.
Yep.
I think we all appreciate it from a distance when it sits in the corner where we don't like to look at it. Is that a fair way to put that? Because I appreciate Hokori. I just don't ever want to sit across the table from it because I come in and I don't want to just sit there and watch Hokori say I can't untap my forest.
And
I think, I will say stacks decks need to provide a way to end the game. Mm-hmm. And if you're not doing that, then you're a dick. Put some way to end the game in your stacks deck. Don't just Armageddon just for funsies.
That's why I think that Oswald and Heliod are better options as well, because those do end the game. Oswald can tutor out game-ending finishers, and then Heliod has a way to end the game through combat damage with bumping your creatures with lifelink and then buffing them up higher, or Heliod Ballista combo.
One more point I'd like to make is whereas the decks that are really good at playing Winter Orb does Oswald Fiddlebender play Winter Orb?
It can, but usually doesn't.
I mean, you can sack it to where it doesn't affect you. Well, no, you can't because it's sorcery speed. But Urza is the prime example of a good Winter Orb deck. I'm not sure that this is breaking the parity as much. You're mono white, so you are kind of locked into the slog as much as everyone, and maybe your deck is going to be built more for it. So but also being mono white, the artifact ramp is going to be kind of tough. If you're in the casual sphere, people aren't going to be as happy if you're playing your Mana Crypts, your Mox Diamonds, your Chrome Moxes, and those are really good cards that this deck kind of needs to thrive with its own Winter Orb effect.
And I think the way to break parity more is like Unwinding Clock, Drum Bellower. Those are what cards you can play mono white, but then it's also going on the idea of you need mana rocks, and you typically play the fast mana.
Yep.
Yes, and that's why I think you should play this in like a high power sphere, which obviously is going to be a smaller demographic because it's between CEDH and like your other casual decks. I still just think that this having under 200 decks is absurd to me. I think this should have more lists. I think it's just lost to time for the most part. This is actually like a quality stack that people should look at for those high power spears.
Oh yeah,
there's 201 decks.
In the early days of CEDH, Hikori was a real deck that people played. Like, trust it is quite good. It's just now where we stand, it's not where it needs to be. All right, now that we've covered mono white stacks, let's move on to a little bit more of a classic archetype as well in mono black sack. I'm going to talk about God Eternal Bontu. God Eternal Bontu is 5 mana for a 5/6 zombie god. And that's 3 and 2 black to cast this. God Eternal Bontu has Menace. When God Eternal Bontu enters the battlefield, sacrifice any number of other permanents, then draw that many cards. And when God Eternal Bontu dies or is put into exile from the battlefield, you may put it on top of its owner's library, third from the top. Alright. This is a pretty big sack effect, right? And there's a lot of potential power in this. You can sacrifice any number of permanents, which includes lands, this includes treasure tokens, this is anything that you want to sacrifice, right? And it's unique because another thing about a lot of commanders is you tend to get these long-term engines as opposed to these one big punch effects. So I think that's a unique playstyle. But what I'm most concerned about with Bontu is I think I have the commander who has the lowest number of decks at 120.
Oh, wow.
We recognize how powerful this effect is, and it's 120 decks? That is so criminally underrated, especially once you start getting into these big mana, and big sack loops, right? If you're the sack player, you're heavy on creatures, you get to do things with Living End and Sir Conrad style effects that are really good with this, especially because Bontu's going to draw you into it. You can choose to put Bontu in the command zone if you want to, after you sacrifice Bontu itself, or you can choose to put it in the graveyard for these loops. But here's the other thing. You're supposed to be playing a sack deck, right? If you have mass token production, for example, say like a Pawn of Ulamog that's giving you tokens every time something you control dies, and you have a sack outlet in play, with Bontu's trigger on the stack, you can sacrifice Bontu, put it third from the top on your deck, and then just draw back into Bontu to get a mass draw loop. Ethan, big fan of Stinging Study over here. I think this is kind of like a Stinging Study now, isn't it?
I don't know, man. Stinging Study is an instant speed and less black requirement. Stinging Study is just the best black draw spell in Commander.
Ha ha ha.
Why do you laugh, Logan? I'm right.
I'm going to agree.
Oh, just a few older cards,
This deck is very underrated. I've considered building it to try to get it, to show people that this even. I'm trying to think of other one-time effects like this on commanders, and I'm really honestly having trouble doing that. Like a commander that when it enters the battlefield just does one big thing and it's done. But I know there's some really unique cards that you get to play with this deck. There's like the weird peasant that makes like 4 more peasants when it enters the battlefield. So that's just like
Singir Autocrat.
Yes, so that's like 3 or 4 mana for 4 cards. That's really good. And compiling that on with like Blood Artist effects and Zulaport Cutthroat effects, your opponents die very fast.
I think my issue with this commander is I'm not thinking of it as a token strategy deck, which I probably think need to focus on it having token generation to take advantage of it. I'm thinking of sacrificing permanents. So I include my lands. I want to think of cards like Second Sunrise, I think, or things that like bring back permanents from graveyard to the battlefield that were put there this turn, which are generally white effects. This was a black-white card. This card would be insane. Yeah. But without those effects, I feel like it's kind of lacking to me. But I do understand, like, when you put tokens into the mix, it probably should be... I think it's still underrated, but I think it's more where it needs to be because it's such a committed thing.
You think it should only still be 120 lists? That's where I'm kind of hung up with Jason.
No, I'm saying, like, I think there should be more.
Yes.
Okay. It should be more, but I'm not sure how much more.
That's fair.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to also mention our friends... Our good friends' treasures. I would like to mention our good friends' treasures for this deck because, again, they do very well in this deck.
What's the new Black Market Connections is exceptional in this deck. It makes you 2 things per turn to sack to this, and you get to draw another card.
Yeah,
I think the only... Go.
I was going to say, this is a deck that loves upkeep token production.
Yep, Bitter Blossom.
You know, Jadar as well is great.
Dreadhorde Invasion.
That's in step, but it's fine.
Jadar's just an underrated card in general, too.
So I think my biggest thing is also with our way of calculating these deck lists, which is EDHREC, which only counts the past 2 years. It could have just been that this was more popular in the past, and it's just kind of fallen by the wayside because of new things. That's the only issue I have with us doing the statistic how it is, taking from this, because it's not like there's been all these have ever been on EDHREC, because they only scope down to the past 2 years. So this could be more popular and just isn't as popular anymore, and we should shine a light on that. Or it's just always kind of been lower than it should be. Mm-hmm. Either way, good commander. I'm still leave on it, but I understand your points.
Yeah. All right. Cool. I think we're ready to move on to Cameron's second commander.
Yes, I've brought another mono-color commander, mono blue. This is Donal, Herald of Wings. I believe it was in the Spirits Precon. The Millicent? Is that the Spirit?
I believe that's
commander?
correct, yes.
Yeah. It was in that precon. So, Donal, Herald of Wings reads, it's 2 blue for a legendary human wizard, 3/3, that whenever you cast a non-legendary creature spell with flying, you may copy it. Except the copy is a 1/1 spirit in addition to its other types, and do this only once per turn. So, that's something they've been doing a lot recently, so you can't abuse it, is the do it once per turn. This deck only has... I have it up on EDHREC, don't I? It only has 422 decks as of our recording day. That is the same that it was last night when I looked. This is a Flying Creatures Matter, obviously. And I like them because I've always really liked copying spells in Magic. So, like, I've had a Calamax deck. Calamax is really fun. And also abusing Enter the Battlefield triggers. My FAR deck. I love abusing all those ETBs. And this card's a slam dunk for me for that reason. I can't really think of any other Flying Matters commanders. Outside of maybe that partner pairing from the mono blue, like whenever a creature with flying attacks, you scry, and then whenever you scry, there's the other commander that says when you scry, you draw instead.
Yes, that is on my to-build list, I will say.
So, outside of those, can y'all think of any other like flying keyword Flying Matters?
The first thing I think of with Flying Matters is the enchantment favorable wins, so...
Yep.
I guess Sephara kind of cares about flying creatures, but...
Different color.
Yeah.
I was going to say, Inaiz, is that how you pronounce it? The blue-white one from Jumpstart?
Inaiz.
Okay, fair. I mean...
but also blue-white, yeah.
But
it's blue-white.
Thinking about all of the things that you can copy to abuse, like getting double Mole Drifter, that's insane. For evoking 3 mana, draw 4. And because you're not really caring about that it's only a 1/1 spirit in addition. You're just trying to abuse these ETBs. So like Diluvian Primordial has flying. There's I'm looking at Warden of Evos Isle, which is hilarious. It reads that creatures with flying you cast cost 1 less to cast, so you cast that and all your flying creatures cost 2 less. So 1 mana Mole Drifter. I've heard Ancestral Recall is pretty good. Curiosity Crafter, being able to get in with all of those tokens.
Don't question it, Ethan.
No, Cameron, you could have sold us like 5 minutes ago. Double Ledger Shredder.
Thank you.
Why are we still talking? Why are we still talking here, buddy?
I don't care about
Double Ledger Shredder is pretty nice, yeah.
But it's good, yes, it's very good. And it gets buffed. Oh, that's disgusting. Twinning Staff, you're able to copy these things with Twinning Staff. Also, the weird Errant Street Artist. This is like one deck I can think of that it's very good. But yeah, I really like this commander. It's pretty unique in what it does.
All right.
I'm looking at the EDHREC right now, and I see that you get double Ancient Silver Dragon, which, hell yeah. That's awesome.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh wait, and then also Astral Dragon. Do you get copies of the Wait, no, yeah, you get copies of the copies. I think, because it doesn't say anything about non-token. That's really cool. That's fun. I like that.
That's fun.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. So, Ethan, your final commander.
My turn. Okay, so I was reminded of this commander like a few months back, or a while ago actually. The Playing with Power podcast talked about underrated commanders for CEDH, and they mentioned Zur Scale the Bold. And while I don't really, sure they had their whole conversation this back when a comedian NTG was on, and it was cool. But I think of this in a really different way because I like Dragon's approach. This is a really interesting commander to me because you can just do burn, and turning a Flame Rift into a draw 4 sounds pretty good. When you can turn anything that hurts any player, any instant sorcery, into drawing cards in a mono red strategy, that is really cool. Things like Grape Shot turn into how many spells you cast this turn. You can draw that many cards. You can just storm off. You have things like Bergie and Stormkill Artist that allow you to make mana off casting your spells to keep the wheels going. You can just go through your deck. And then with Dragon's Approach now being a card, thanks to Strixhaven, you get to play things like Throwing Stone and Locket of Yesterdays and Pyromancer's Ascension to just go burr. And I love getting to play weird, wacky strategies in Commander and getting to play 35 copies of Dragon's Approach in the same deck. Sounds pretty fun, and getting to get card advantage to find more of those off your Commander is really cool. It is higher in the amounts of decks than the other ones we talked about today at 827. So it isn't as underrated as the other ones, so it might be where it needs to be, but I think it should be a little bit higher, honestly.
I mean, I'm trying to think of the mono red. There's not many mono red Storm commanders.
Not Storm.
Bergie is the premier one. Yeah,
you could do like some Krark shenanigan pairing.
But that's not really mono red at that point. Well, I guess you could pick up.
Oh no, you can do mono red Krark.
You definitely can, like Krark Tedis or whatever.
Krark.
I mean, I think Krark Jessica would just be better in that case.
Yeah,
or Krark,
my bad. Yeah,
Krark
for sure.
Maybe I don't know what you would really be doing.
Dargo.
Dargo,
shenanigans.
Dargo, if you're trying to get your storm count up, you could do some Dargo loops with Phyrexian Altar.
Yep.
And you could just do that with a Grape Shot to finish people off. That's not the worst idea. That's not the worst idea. I'll simmer on that one.
Back to Kara is really cool. Card advantage in mono red on the commander. It's kind of not a lot there a lot. And when she just cares about damage from her instant sorcery. So I really like the interaction with Grape Shot a lot with this commander.
Yeah, it's super cool. I will say that the one sad thing about this is you don't get anything like a Lab Man to take advantage of like exiling your entire deck. I don't know if you care as much about that.
Or you just find the cards to kill your opponents.
I mean, true, but I'm like, what if you exile your entire deck?
I mean, also you have to think about like Aetherflux Reservoir. That's an option, or Sentinel Tower. Those are options to help deal more damage. Now, granted, those will not trigger Zur Scale because it's not a instant or sorcery, but being able to actually have a way that spinning your wheels, casting these spells will result in a win. So I think those cards are really important. You also have spells like copying things such as like why am I blanking? Pyromancer's Goggles and I was thinking more permanent base, but yes, Fork, you could do Fork and stuff like that. But like the permanent base, like Pyromancer's Goggles, and you have
Double Vision.
Primal Amulet.
Double Vision. Why can't I think of the Primal Amulet?
Primal Amulet is a really good one,
like things like that to just get more value out. I like Storm. It reminds me of Rionia, Fire Dancer, but like in a more spellcasty way than a creature spellcasty way. It's kind of similar to Rionia in my mind.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
No pushback. You guys like this one?
I do. I mean, it's cool. Stormkill Artist is pretty good, isn't it?
I think it's about
I'm
where
not immediately convinced. Yeah, I think it's about where it should be as well. I'm not convinced it's underappreciated, but there may be specifically like the Dragon's Approach build is underappreciated.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel that's where I'm kind of at too. I think Dragon's Approach this might be the Dragon's Approach deck. I know Florian. Was it Florian?
Yeah, Florian's a popular one.
Yeah, Florian was one, and then you also do like Velomachus Lorehold to do a Boros one. I'm not too sold on that one. You could do the blue-red Prismari, the dragon. Why am I Why am I blanking on these names?
Galazeth Prismari.
Galazeth Prismari.
Thank you. You get a Galazeth to have more mana to cast these. There's many different options because like in Galazeth you can like go tutor out your Nimbus, so like that kind of works pretty well. But if you're going mono red, this is the one. This is the one.
Yeah, I will say it doesn't really do anything that I think separates it in the Storms in Burn archetypes. But if you're like specifically going for a Dragon's approach thing, I think I would tend to agree with that.
Card advantage on a Burn archetype is a little unique, but you're also working with a 5-mana commander to get there, so there's a big trade-off.
You're in red. Just go Desperate Ritual. Just Desperate Ritual.
I also noticed that I'm looking at the EDHREC. It has Flame Rift in here. That's interesting.
Yeah, you get some really cool cards in this deck. And if you want to go a deck kind of like the Electric Static Field, Gutter Snipe kind of style, I think this is like the deck to do. Dragon's Approach, the key card I think when you're doing Dragon's Approach list with this is Null Spine Dragon. Because if you cast like 5 Dragon's Approaches and then you do the whole Dragon's Approach, get a dragon out, discard your hand, draw like 15 off of Null Spine Dragon, sounds pretty good. Just my opinion.
That seems pretty neat.
Yeah. All right. And that covers the commanders that we wanted to talk about specifically. But we have a Patreon, and we asked our patrons if they had a couple that they were interested in. So we have 2 more commanders to talk about, courtesy of our patrons, Gravity and Y2A. We're going to start with Gravity's commander first. Ethan, can you read us off?
Ooh, I get back to back. Ooh. All right. We're going to talk about one that's kind of close to my heart, EDHREC the Bloodcursed. So, longtime viewers of the channel might remember when we did our Crimson Vow release video, I played EDHREC the Bloodcursed. Or it's EDHREC Bloodcursed, not the Bloodcursed. Oh, well, close enough. The card details, it is a 3-drop 3/3. It's 1 white and a red for a Vampire Soldier. When EDHREC Bloodcursed enters the battlefield, create X blood tokens or X number of abilities from among Flying, First Strike, Double Strike, Death Touch, Haste, Hexproof, Indestructible, Lifelink, Menace, Reach, Trample, and Vigilance found among creatures you control. So, essentially, when it enters the battlefield, look at your creatures. Count up how many different keywords out of a select
Most
list.
Evergreen
most evergreen. Like the only ones I can think of, like Infect isn't on here because like
Protection.
Protection's not on there.
No banding,
but,
so.
Banding's the big one, yeah, for sure. But out of most relevant keywords, just if you're building the deck, you probably should keep track of all that. See how many there are, you make that many blood tokens. Doesn't really seem like much, because blood tokens are kind of poopy. Like, was anyone actually happy with blood tokens when they were announced? I wasn't. I thought they were
fine and limited.
garbage.
I played limited.
They're
okay.
They're medium.
Yeah,
they're
right,
okay.
limited.
I like them more than food.
I mean, fair. I like him more than food, but like not by much. And then EDHREC not having a keyword on himself is kind of where I find issue with this.
Before we started recording.
I talked about this when this card came out, 8 months ago, because I had to build this beautiful, beautiful man. So I think that if you're trying to go keyword value wise, you get access to red in this one compared to the other EDHRECs. But I think of this one as an artifact deck. Because if you have a few ways to get some keywords on, generating 3 or 4 artifacts on this ETB, it's sack fodder, right? Like you can do things like Goblin Welder, Goblin Engineer to get other artifacts back. If you're trying to do things with like Reckless Fireweaver to deal damage based on those things, Gear Per Aethergrade to tap down those, or Inspiring Statuary to use them as mana. There's some things like that. If you go back and I'm going to spoil the video for anyone that wants to go. EDHREC ended up winning, surprisingly. And I made the deck like a Brea deck. I made it Boros Brea to essentially make infinite mana looping through. And with the blood tokens with infinite mana, you can loop through your deck. I had a shuffle Eldrazi Titan in there to loop through infinitely. And with Reckless Fireweaver, make infinite tokens, infinite damage. Woo, Rube Goldberg machine. Notably, but it's really cool to play an off, like, it's underappreciated. It might deserve a little bit more. I think it's cool. 347 decks is where it's at right now. That might be perfect for it. It's not great, but it's fun, and that's the important thing.
Yes. My main point is blood. You said blood tokens aren't good until you get an Alhammer's archive. Then it's a thrill of possibility.
That's when it's great.
Yeah,
no,
that's when it's really good.
Yeah, but I don't think I'm ever treating blood tokens as anything other than, oh, cool, I have a free artifact now.
I mean,
that's
the
like
redraw
it might as
can
well
be
not have an
relevant.
ability.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like most of the time, it might as well not even have an ability. But that doesn't have anything to do with EDHREC. It has more to do with the
Depends upon the
design.
deck. Like if there's not many decks that make blood tokens, but I'm thinking like Old Rutstein. Old Rootstein. That if you're playing that as a green-black reanimator deck, blood tokens aren't that bad in that deck. You get one of those things stuck in your hand. They're okay.
But we are also talking about the color combination that historically has the worst card advantage.
Yes.
So, like, card selection is significantly more meaningful here than it is anywhere else.
Yes.
That said, we are talking about a pretty mana-intensive card selection. We need to build an engine to not get card advantage, but just get card selection. It doesn't feel great. Around 350 lists is not too surprising for EDHREC. EDHREC kind of just fell flat at every step of where it really wanted to be. And in particular, just give this boy haste or first strike or something.
Vigilance, first strike, something, yes.
Like, just guarantee me one.
Yep. I want to make one last disappointing point about EDHREC before we go to end on low note. It doesn't count Defender.
Wow,
which is relevant for Weathered
Actually,
Sentinels, the card that came out in Nuka Pen and Commander that has 4 keywords, but one of those is Defender, so it really accounts for 3. That makes me very sad. Now, in retrospect, that makes
so
me
sad.
very sad.
Yeah.
This is so sad. I'd like to play Despacito.
I mean,
I think EDHREC might be very slightly underappreciated. Maybe it should be closer to like 500 lists, but overall, I think it's around about where it should be. Like,
I think I'd maybe give it 100 more lists. Like, get it to the 450 mark. Because I think if you're playing the Rube Goldberg machine, that's an underappreciated build. I think the people genuinely playing this as keyword soup plus blood tokens, you are having a bad time.
just play the original EDHREC.
yeah,
The-
there are
no.
so many better keyword soup decks, and I think there's also a lot better artifact Rube Goldberg machines, and it just gets overshadowed in both archetypes.
Yeah. But in particular, what overshadows this for Boros keyword soup is you can play Rograk Achroma.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like,
yeah,
play that.
that's pretty good.
Just
you
play
have
that.
a much better option.
Okay, we can just move on. But just play.
Yeah.
Unless you just love EDHREC Vampire Daddy, like just move on to Rograk Achroma.
EDHREC's kind of cute, but no.
Yeah. We may not agree that we may think that this is maybe a little bit underappreciated, but not much. But Gravity, we really appreciate the recommendation. We're glad to talk about it. Moving on to Y2A's recommendation.
Yes.
Cameron.
It was Brian Stoutarm. Brian Stoutarm is a 2 in Boros, or Lorehold if you're into that. 2 in Lorehold, 4/4. Legendary creature, giant warrior, with lifelink. And for a red and tapping it and sacking another creature as the cost, you can have Brian Stoutarm deal damage equal to the sacrificed creature's power to target player. I thought you could do it to other creatures. Now I'm sad. But the card's still good. It has... How many lists? I have it up. It has 996 deck lists, so literally just below the threshold.
996.
Yes.
Yeah, this is the highest number
I
we're
just refreshed my
talking
page.
about.
That's 6 lists than when I pulled the list like this up like
I know.
10 minutes ago.
Yes.
People are building this deck today. What the hell?
What if it would have gotten over
Y2A
1,000?
spreading the word. This is gospel for him.
If it had gotten to it, we would have been up shit creek if it had gotten to 1,000 by the time we
would've
would
been
start talking
hilarious.
about it.
Yeah.
It has 1,000. But this deck is kind of fling tribal, you know? Like, you play things like Sarah Avatar and, what's the other one? Soul of Eternity. So you bop someone for, your life total and gain that much. My lord.
Halcyon as well.
You can encore Soul of Eternity.
Ever at Halcyon's Witness?
Yeah, you can.
Yes.
So
I will say... Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say things like Calamity Bearer are really good in this deck, doubling damage. But what were you going to say?
Literally, I was about to say my favorite card in this deck is Calamity Bearer. You bastard.
I think
You
there is
stole-
a really
stole my
cool
line.
build of this deck if you're wanting it to build it as like Treason Tribal. So you're literally just playing every single red spell. I don't know what the effect is generally called, but like the 2 and a red, steal a creature for 1 turn, it gains haste.
I call it like treason. Speaking of that, though, Captivating Crew.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. Love that in this deck.
Yep. It's fine. Like underrated is probably not where I'd put it. I'd probably put it like right where it is. And that's fine. Like, it's a perfectly fine Boros commander, and if you're wanting to play Boros sack stuff, it's either this or Huffrey Ghostforge, right? It's kind of your options.
I think so.
Yeah,
Probably.
And
Boros
those are
sack.
different axes. Like, this one's flinging the damage, and the other one is, more abusing ETBs.
I will say, while I agree, it's like appreciated the correct amount list wise. This is a fun deck. Like, more people should play it and like talk about it. It's a super cool deck.
Yeah, I think this commander in particular is a novelty commander because prior to the existence of Zeotora, there was no other option for Fling.
True.
Yeah.
So, a demand that was met 3 months ago. Like, you had one option. So I think this deck is neat. It is not up my alley at all.
I think it's really cool. Like, things like Hoffrey Ghostforge is pretty good in this deck, being able to rebuy those. Luminous Broodmoth. All those cards that say when this creature dies, return it somehow.
Yeah.
I'm into this deck. I'm not saying it's good, but I'm into it.
Oh yeah, it's clunky, but it's fun.
And playing
It's pretty
things,
neat, yeah.
there's some like untapped shenanigans, like Patriarch Seal. You can do. Trying to think of the other untappers.
Just get your Thornbite Staff.
No, Thornbite Staff.
Is there like a Thornbite staff combo in the deck? There probably is.
Just sacrificing a creature for his ability will make him untap. So there you go.
Oh, true. Yeah.
Yep. As I said, this deck is kind of perfectly fine where it is. I just saw Nykthos Paragon, and I laughed because you can kind of also lean into the life gain a little bit. Like,
there is a life gain theme you can do too.
There's some decent. You can gain some decent chunks of life. Off of them.
Brian having lifelink is super
Also,
neat.
just give him infect.
Yep.
Just give him infect.
Ironically
Easy
enough, also a deck you want Alhamra's Archive for, but with the other half of it.
Potentially, yeah, if you really care about the life gain.
I'm playing Alhamra's Archive.
I was gonna say, we're just gonna do Alhammer's Archive Day. We're just gonna do an episode where we just
Good
talk
card
about
is
how
good?
Alhammer's Archive is. Yes.
Oh, you know
card is
how
pretty
you know
good.
how Arena has like the special events where you like get something like on your battlefield like inherently everybody does. We should just do a game where everybody has Alhamra's Archive inherently and just see who can do the most.
So we're playing Group Hug. We're just playing Group Hug.
Yeah, there's just some fifth players who just group hug and they just start with Alhamra's Archive and just sit there the entire game.
Okay, I've actually convinced myself on this deck. You play all the damage doublers and triplers and just give him infect. So all you got to do is sacrifice like a 5/5.
Oh hell
someone.
yeah!
Okay,
Fiery
then move on
Emancipation.
now. I don't feel
No.
so good no more.
Alright, that covers all the commanders we want to talk about in the underappreciated scale of things. Now it is time for Zur Scale. It has been 2 months at least since we have covered Zur Scale. Let's talk about it. Alright, so for those at home that are unaware what the Zur Scale is, the Zur Scale is a rough power ranking system that we are doing for multiplayer Commander. We are talking about specifically in the casual sphere. It is named after the scales that Mark Rosewater does, like the Rabia scale for what likelihood of going back to a plane, or the Storm scale for the likelihood of a mechanic returning. In this case, it's how afraid should I be of this commander if I see it across from the table? And it's based on named after Zur the Enchanter, a popular enchantments commander, where pretty much no matter what way you build this commander, it's going to do something a little bit broken, and it's a little hard to not break Zur. It's also just been around for forever, so people are pretty aware of it. Today, we're going to be talking about Mono Black. And we have a fine selection of Mono Black commanders, most of which that are not highly rated on our scale, and we kind of wanted to justify why they may not be good, or what our thought process is for them. So, we're going to start out with Acererak the Arclich. Acererak's ranking is the normal build for Acererak. The average build people play it as is, we have it rated as a 2, which means it is a pretty rough deck. It's not strong. We're not scared of it. An optimized build, something where you're really fine-tuning the build, it's going for 5, where it hits about the average level compared to other optimized builds of other commanders. The color support here is a 6, meaning you do have a fair bit of support for what's going on. The flexibility is a 2. There's really 1 to 2 builds of this, and Acererak's power itself is a 2. We don't think it is a particularly strong card in its own deck. Guys, how do you feel about it?
It does suck. I will say, I want to note the large gap between the normal and the optimized, and that is because the normal deck that we found, at least, you're looking through EDHREC and during our research for it, was just, we're just venturing through dungeons with Acererak, or Acererak, or however you pronounce it. But Ashcrack, yes. But the optimize is so much better, even though it's only an average deck. The optimize is so much better because you are then putting in combos to do infinite Acererak stuff, and I think you can outright kill people with dungeons.
Yes.
But even then, it takes a lot of setup to do.
Yep.
And yeah,
if only he had green,
and that's
you could just play Lurin.
Yeah,
true. It's still much less common.
Yeah, the optimized build for Acererak doesn't care about completing any dungeon other than the Lost Mines of Feldendelver, for the one reason of getting to where you hit the middle and you deal 1 damage to an opponent and gain 1 life. Because your whole goal is just to loop through that dungeon and drain your opponents out.
Yep.
After you generate infinite black mana to cast Acererak over and over and over again.
And if you're doing mono black zombies, there's just much better commanders for that.
Oh, that is another thing to mention. Yeah, that's another thing to mention is that
nothing.
Mono Black Zombie was another significant chunk of Acererak.
Cool color Gisa.
Mm-hmm.
Which isn't even good, but it's better.
Cool color Gisa's good.
She's acceptable at the very minimum.
Definitely better choice.
She does
than
a
this.
thing. Yes, she's a better choice than this, and that's all we need to say.
Yep. Yeah, Acererak doesn't have much going for him. Even with the new dungeon support that we just got out of Commander Legends 2, I don't think Acererak's improved at all.
No.
Nope.
Alright. Next up, Ephemia the Cacophony. This thing's a 2-mana 2/1 that at the beginning of your instep, you have to exile an enchantment or creature. I can't remember which it is.
It's an enchantment.
It's an enchantment.
Yeah, just an enchantment to make a 2/2 zombie.
It also has fly.
All right. It has fly. It's a 2-mana card. Ooh. Alright, we gave this thing normal ranking 2, optimized 2, color support is a 2, flexibility is a 1, and power itself is a 2. This commander's super weird.
It's bad.
It's really bad.
Mono black enchantments that you want in the graveyard is it's not even there's not, how many sagas are there in mono black? And they take 3 turns to go off.
And there's only so many dead weight effects you can play. I think the best way to play this is just a Voltron commander, and then you have a way to kind of sort of go wide if your Ephemia dies, but after you recast her, it's not good.
Yeah. This is one of those commanders where we had a hard time figuring out if this should have been a 1 or a 2, and we're benefit of the doubting giving it a 2.
It's not hurting you.
0
0. That would be a 0. Yeah.
We'll get
1
there.
just gives you not enough to build around. Fortunately, there's enough to build around here. It's just, is it even worth trying? Right? There's only so much self-mill you can do, especially in enchantments. It's
and
really
the benefit you get off of it isn't worth it.
Yeah, and what's your Enchantress payoff, aside from Ephemia? A Blightcaster?
Yeah, you're in mono black, so
Doomwake Giant.
Doomwake Giant. Doomwake Giant is a good card.
Doomwake Giant.
Yeah. Doomwake Giant's a kind of legit option, but the token you make isn't even an enchantment, right?
It's a zombie.
It's just a zombie. So, come on.
And it's only on your end step. So
yes. Yeah.
You get 1 per turn cycle.
A lot of bad stuff.
Yeah. So, this is one that we generally feel totes that line between 1 and 2, so that gives you a good understanding of where we're at for how bad a commander needs to be to get a 1 or a 2. Alright, moving on to the best commander we're talking about today. Chainer, Dementia Master. This is our 5-mana Chainer in mono black that has a 3-mana activated ability to reanimate a creature. Normal builds of Chainer, a 6. An optimized build of Chainer, a 9. Support, 10 out of 10. Flexibility, 7. It's actually pretty damn flexible how you build Chainer decks. And the power level of Chainer itself is a 6.
Yep. Also weirdly underrated. It only has 694 decks. And as far as mono black reanimator goes, I would say this is the best one probably.
See, my thing on Chainer is you can play just Reanimator. That's fine. My thing is combo decks.
Oh yeah, it's combo deck.
Yeah, this thing does very good at comboing.
Yeah, Chainer combo decks go fast, man.
Yes.
Especially because, like, Chainer has a downside where if Chainer leaves, I believe you exile all of your nightmares and you're bringing back these creatures as nightmares. But you can sacrifice the creature that you reanimated and it won't get exiled. Mm-hmm. So you get this aristocrat combo based lines with Chainer that are quite powerful.
Yeah. Generally, you're doing Gary loops with this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yes. If anybody's familiar with the Crixie EDH deck, at least I think it's previous form. I'm not sure if the newest form of it does this, but the main line in the version I played was getting Gary a sack outlet and then Crick to loop this over and over again and just drain people out.
Yeah. And one other thing on Chainer is it's got a very high ranking right now with a 9 optimized. We are quite uncertain as to how high its optimized build should be because how consistent and fast is it? I know that there were near CDH builds of Chainer. I've seen it in CDH videos before, but I don't know if it's that fast to really match like that really high power level. And again, worth noting, we're talking from a casual sphere because CDH has its own issues with how much you actually have to rely on your commander for it to matter. Whereas casual, you tend to build around your commander, and that makes a huge difference. So, if I was reevaluating Chainer, I might give it a 5.8 or a 5.7 now, after having evaluated all these 3-color commanders as well, and knowing where we put a lot of things. But I think this is still a rather fair assessment for where Chainer is. Mm-hmm. Saying it's normal as a 5 or a 6 is definitely fair, and saying that it's optimized is definitely above average certainly is true.
Yeah, it's a quality commander.
Yeah. All right. On to the next thing. Hey, we spoke about this one earlier today. It's God Eternal Bond 2. So God Eternal Bond 2, we've got as 4 normal, 5 optimized, 10 on that support, 6 on that flexibility, and 4 on that power. It's good. It's certainly good.
It's good too.
Pretty solid.
But 4 also means it is a below average commander. Just a little, but it's below average. And we don't need to go too deep on it. We already talked about why it was good in the episode. It is another one we would need to see a little bit more gameplay of, because there's certainly a good argument that this might be a 3, depending on how strong the one-shot ability and how much you can get to looping is.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The thing that worries me about it more than most other sacrifice decks is the fragility of a one-shot type ability like that.
Yep. Alright. Now, let's talk about possibly the most controversial one on this list.
Ooh.
Marilyn the Mornsong. Our good 3-mana, 2/3 elf that makes it so you skip drawing cards for your first card every turn, and you instead tutor and lose life. So, we mentioned before that this is a scale. It's 0 to 10, and a 0 actively hurts you. Marilyn is a 0 on this scale. Doesn't matter normal or optimized, it's a 0.
She fucking sucks.
Yes,
like she's really bad.
Yes, the main lock piece with her is not even in her color, so if this is your commander, you cannot lock people out with Stranglehold.
No. You play Opposition Agent.
It's Opposition Agent.
Yeah.
Oh, true. Yes.
She has 1 card to pair with her to break her. Now, granted, you were in black, you can tutor, that's fine. But if you want to guarantee your lock, so to speak, you have to get to 6 mana to play it all in 1 turn, or you have to flash in the opposition agent, then immediately play Marilyn, and hope for the best.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And I will emphasize the hope, because you gotta hope that one of your 3 opponents doesn't have a removal spell in hand.
Doesn't
already.
tutor removal. Like,
yeah.
The commander doesn't have removal on them.
Yeah.
Their commander would literally have removal.
Exactly.
Or you just can't play Marilyn the whole game.
Yes.
Yeah, you just don't play Marilyn.
You get to tutor last, which is like super
exactly.
relevant.
Yep. Exactly. If you play Marilyn, your first opponent, or actually probably your third opponent, because people are going to probably be mean and say, "No, you have to go get the spell." So yeah, your other 2 opponents are getting win cons out of their deck, and your third opponent's getting a way to deal with your commander. It's utterly pointless and actually detrimental to you.
Alright, Moving on to a significantly better tutoring commander, Razaketh the Foul-Blooded. Now, Razaketh still is not a particularly strong commander in our eyes, despite its extreme power in the 99 of a deck. So, Razaketh is a 4 normal, 4 optimized, has a 5 on its color support, 3 on its flexibility, and 7 on Razaketh's power itself. The main issue with Razaketh is ramp. You got an 8 mana commander, you have to resolve your 8 mana commander, and hope.
Yeah, I know that pain. I played
this.
But if I may interject here and say, well, this is the best commander on this list we have to talk today. Stinking Study.
Yes, this is unironically a decent Stinking Study deck.
I hear you.
Hell yeah, it is!
But Razaketh, this is very simple to put. Razaketh is much better than 99 than it is in your command zone. It's a lot harder to
draw
cheat things
8
out
off
from your
Stinking
command
Study.
zone.
So, like...
There's like
it's
better
not the
8
worst
mana.
card.
There's other 8 mana commanders you can
Well,
play.
Villas, yes. If you're going to compare this to Villas, Villas is better because Stinking Study lets you draw double the cards. Like
16.
It's just a better. Yes, you draw 16 off Stinking Study compared to 8. Like, it's just better.
And Villas also, controls the board while still drawing cards.
Yeah.
Don't get us wrong.
Stinking Study is the important part there. Stinking Study is the important part.
The important thing to note about Razaketh is that we're kind of the opinion that if Razaketh hits play and gets to go around the table, like, you get a full turn with Razaketh, you're probably winning that game.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But getting to the 8 mana through interaction, through what your opponents are doing, it's going to be hard, especially because you do have to keep your life total high for Razaketh to be particularly effective. Alright, moving on. Here's a neat one. This is 100% my bias showing, but I wanted to talk about Taborax. Hope's Demise. Taborax is a cleric's commander.
Oh, yeah, that one's cool.
Yeah.
Yes, Taborax
Like
is
cleric,
pretty actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Taborax, it's a 3 mana 2/2 flying. It gets lifelink as long as it has 5 or more counters on it, and whenever a non-token creature you controls die, you put a 1/1 counter on Taborax. If that creature was a cleric, you draw a card and lose life. Neat.
Mono black cleric tribal.
Yeah.
Why wasn't this one talked about today,
Voltron
Jason?
aspect.
The main reason we're talking about this, though, is specifically because if you want to play with Shadowborn Apostles, I believe this is your best commander. People love playing Athreos, they love doing all these various sack decks. I think you just want to take your draw 6, lose... You draw 6, lose 6, put 6 counters on Taborax, get another demon into play, and swing gain 8 with Taborax. I think that's what you just want to do.
Yeah, it seems pretty good.
So, Taborax may be better, but I think having white makes Athreos better, because what is it, Edgewalker? Is that the one that lets you cast your Shadowborn Apostles for free?
Yeah, sure.
So.
Yeah. You can do some nasty loops with that. But I do like Taborax as a Shadowborn Apostle deck a lot, actually.
Yeah. The other thing about Taborax is I think it defaults to the sack plan a little bit better. If you just need to start sacrificing your Shadowborn Apostles for value, as opposed to using them for actual tutoring out demons, the backup plan with Taborax is significantly better than Athreos, who's just going to let your opponents decide if you get to keep looping. But yeah, worth mentioning. Taborax, we have Taborax as a 4 normal and 4 optimized with a 7 on the support, 1 on the flexibility. You have 1 build you are doing here. And the power level is 4. This is still a below average deck. Alright, and the last one we're going to talk about, who may be the most underappreciated commander on this list. Xiahou Dun, the One-Eyed. This is a card from Portal 3 Kingdoms.
Yes.
It has 96 decks, I just checked for us.
Yes. Xiahou Dun is not a particularly popular commander. Its main thing is its ability. It's a 4 mana 3/2 human soldier with horsemanship. Gotta love that keyword. We're really going to be using that here. Or we'll just be sacrificing Xiahou Dun to return target black card from your graveyard to your hand and activate this only during your turn before attackers are declared. Xiahou Dun is a storm commander.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Please go into
Pretty
detail,
unique.
because you have my interest peaked for sure.
Alright. You go a little bit slow to get your Xiahou Dun down. And then you either cast your Xiahou Dun and then keep getting back a reanimate and reanimating Xiahou Dun as you continue to sacrifice it.
Okay.
That builds up a lot of storm in a single turn. Or you get your ritual that you need. Or you get your tutor that you need. Or you get your LED. Or get that tendrils and get them. Realistically,
Okay.
The tendrils line is probably less good than the Gravestorm lines, but at the same time, yeah, this is actually a pretty decent Storm Commander, and it is maybe the best one in Mono Black.
I think the only other one you can compare to it is maybe Toshiro Umezawa. That's like the only other one you can compare to it, but for specifically Mono Black Storm, it's a little bit. It's a very, very thin archetype.
Yeah. I mean, is Crick not just better?
Oh, I guess that is true. Yes.
Oh yeah, that's EDH.
I mean, you can build casual.
Oh, you certainly can. Yeah, so Xiahou Dun's very interesting in how you have it built, but it is a little bit fragile. The normal builds that are not dedicated towards doing these, going extremely fast in their storm lines and trying to optimize ad nauseum lines as well, we have that rated as a 3, but we think that the optimized builds, the really optimized builds, go fast, have the potential to reach a 7 on our Zur Scale. And that's not easy. That one is like, we need more testing, we need to see this more, because unfortunately, it is worth noting that with a lot of these commanders, we haven't played with them or against them. We really love it when people give us data on these things. So if you have recommendations of gameplay for some of these commanders that you think are being underappreciated or maybe overrated, shoot them our way. We love to see that in the comments. But Xiahou Dun definitely has the potential to be a very, very potent Storm Commander. Ethan, is it coming on the channel soon? Are we going to see Mono Black Storm?
No. I have no desire to have a Mono Black Storm. Mono Red Storm with Sir Karat, maybe. Mono Black.
I would say
I'm not sure.
I feel like this guy might require just a little bit too much thought for Ethan. So,
I mean, are you trying to goad me into building it?
Yes,
Maybe.
Okay. I like to think I'm a little bit more confident in myself to not just be goaded into it. If you guys want to buy me lunch one day, I will consider it.
Oh, no, I have to bribe you? Gosh.
Yes, I am not a politician, but even if I was, bribery works.
But Ethan, what if I sent you this wonderful book I have from Ken Bauman?
See, now that's a good bribe.
Oh, it came in. Nice.
I do have my book from Ken. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you, Ken. We love you.
Thank you, Ken. I want to talk to you, Ken.
Yes, he's
They didn't let me talk to you last time.
Oh, that's not true.
That's not true. I just wasn't around. But
this is true. Well,
all right. And with that, that's who we want to talk about on the Zur Scale. If you're interested in things like who's the most powerful commander on the Zur Scale, or if you want to talk about most powerful options in Mono Black, we didn't really go into great detail on that, but I think it's pretty easy in the casual sphere to say it's Turgid. Just in case anyone was curious on that, Turgid kind of broken in the casual sphere.
Kinda. Just kinda.
Just a little bit.
All right. And with that, I think we are done for the day. Guys, how are we feeling?
Pretty
feeling
cash money, if I can't lie.
Pretty good.
that is very cash money of you, I have to say.
I think,
yes, of course.
I think at the end of the day, we found some very good, underrated gems, and Logan was wrong. It's great. Everything's great.
Oh, yeah, it's fantastic.
Oh, sure. Okay.
All right. Thank you all very much for watching another episode of the Wrinkly Brain Podcast. Be sure to check out our main channel if you'd like to see some edited gameplay. Go and look at the playlist. Like, comment, subscribe. We really appreciate it. Join our Discord if you'd like to chat with us in person. Eventually, we are getting pretty close to being done with the Zur Scale, and I am getting close to having that available to the public to just look and comment on. I would love your feedback, and I'm available in our Discord to talk about it. So please chat with us there. Shout out again to our patrons, especially those who provided us a couple of commanders to talk about today, Y2A and Gravity. We really appreciate y'all very much. We will be back in 2 weeks to chat about something else. We haven't decided on that quite yet, but we will get there. Thank y'all very much for watching once again. This has been Jason, Ethan, Cameron, and our special guest Logan this week. Thank y'all very much. Have a nice day.